as you slowly build up and you share what you know with an authenticity, you will be able to grow your experience and authority and your online reputation so much better than going out there and hyping with the thousands of others that, should not have anything in consulting at all.
You are now tuned in to the Misi Muse Unplugged, a pop-up podcast variety show helping consultants along their journey to greatness with your host, management consultant, author and blogger, Christy Lindor.
Hey, my go-getters. Welcome to the Misi Muse Unplugged podcast show. I'm your host, Christy Lindor. Super excited to be bringing you episode 33. And today we're actually doing an Ask Me Anything, or AMA. And if this is your first time tuning in, AMAs are when I have the utmost pleasure of connecting with either seasoned or former consultants, and they give you advice. Today's guest, we've got Loren Weisman. A little bit about Loren. He's actually got a really interesting background. He's a musician turned what I like to call accidental consultant. His title it actually has a really cool title, Brand Precision Marketing Strategist. He's also a speaker. And just as his interesting background sounds, I think you'll really enjoy my conversation today with Loren. He shares not only about how he, started out as a musician, a little bit about the music industry, but then how he really ended up pivoting and getting into consultant and really shares his nuggets of wisdom. Really cool conversation, so check it out. Wanted to actually also, go-getters, talk a little bit about last week. So last week, I mentioned I launched my book, The Misi Muse, and I had my launch party. It was so fabulous, go-getters. Thank you so much for those that took the time out to, attend the party in person, those that attended it virtually, those who were not able to attend but sent me, text messages and tweets and emails and LinkedIn messages. I really, really appreciated it. Last week was so amazing. Two reasons. So one, I got a chance to connect and really celebrate this milestone of, my book launch of The Misi Muse. But what's really cool is that, go-getters, The Misi Muse is actually officially an Amazon bestseller. Pretty amazing. Misi Muse is actually making its way up the charts on Amazon. And within 72 hours, it became the #1 new release book in the consulting category. So I'm super, super excited. It's just so surreal, given the amount of work to put this book together that we've made it, this far. We're actually also, The Misi Muse is also currently #2 Kindle. So it's the #2 Kindle book in the consulting category. And it's also #5. It's ranked #5 overall bestseller in consulting category in general. So awesome launch. Super thrilled. And I know that this book is going to change a lot of lives. I set out almost a decade ago, really wanting to be the mentor that I wish I had. And go-getters, it's just so surreal. I started to get calls and emails that people are reading the book, they're enjoying it. And it's only available on Kindle now, unless you got an advanced copy. But people have been really starting to absorb it. And I cannot wait to see the lives that's changed, the career trajectories that are changed because of this book. I feel like I've met my mission. It's just, I get goosebumps just talking about it, just thinking about it, and just knowing that I, created this legacy and not, I don't know, I'm getting emotional. So I want to kind of stop here before I get too emotional, but I'm very, very excited for this moment. Check it out if you haven't already. Go out to Amazon. You can click on The Misi Muse. So quick story, go-getters. As I mentioned, we have both the Kindle version that's available for immediate download. It's actually at a reduced price, so check it out while it's still at that reduced price. We also launched the pre-order for our paperback, and the pre-order site crashed this weekend with the launch. So many people, hitting it. So I know that between the Amazon team and my distributor and my publisher, they're trying to figure it out. So there is a paperback copy of the book. You can pre-order it. It's going to be released on February 20th. Hopefully, by the time this episode is released, hopefully the Amazon magic will be, unfolded and you will be able to pre-order your copy. So with that, Super excited again to share today's interview with Loren, and let's get started. Loren, thank you so much for joining us on the Misi Muse Unplugged today. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing great.
Awesome. I think this is going to be a great conversation. You have I'm just so impressed with your background. I was very excited to connect with you. So I guess before we delve into the interview, can you maybe kick off with an introduction of yourself to the go-getters of the Misi Muse Unplugged?
Sure. Hi, go-getters. I'm a brand precision marketing strategist and counselor. And in a sense, it's a consultant, it's a coach, it's whatever term you want to use. I look from more of a psychological operation standpoint of how you're reaching with your brand, with your business, with your goals, with your budget, with your time. Are you spending too much time in certain areas? Are you following methods from other coaches or strategies that are either outdated or they don't have the full picture? Maybe someone's explaining, all I did was this, but they had $500,000 behind it. We really look to specialize and individualize what the best path is and what the best message is that's your message. Because when you come from an authentic and personalized base, you're going to be able to capture a greater audience with your product, your service, your consulting, or whatever else that you're putting out there over a sea of spam emails and pre-written templates.
So thank you for giving us kind of that high-level introduction. Maybe for those that are unfamiliar with the type of consulting work you do as a brand precision marketing strategist, can you maybe kind of take it down for us? Take it down in terms of like on a day-to-day, like what does that mean that you do? And maybe even share like how did you get into this line of work?
Well, I started as a drummer. I was a musician coming up. I never thought I'd leave music. Some people spend 20 years getting in. I spent 20 years and then I got out. In being a drummer, I got to do something called ghost drumming. And what that consisted of was signing a confidentiality or an NDA, coming into a studio and playing for someone that either couldn't play the part, maybe they were unwell, maybe they had too many drugs or too much alcohol in their system. That entire experience got me to see an array of the entertainment world, of investors, of how things were working. That crossed over into television and the music production. And the entire time it was discovery for me of everything from a soda brand to, a multi-million-dollar music brand to an author putting out a book. And then in my second to last book, I was on a book tour and more people were coming out that weren't musicians. And I started getting hired as a business consultant by accident. Mostly what I do, and my goal is to come in and be with a given client for as short and as inexpensive time as possible. It's a mixture of looking at everything that they're doing with a different mindset and a different eye, then saying, okay, from a budgeting standpoint, from a strategy standpoint, from a social media standpoint, from logos, colors, all of it. But to summarize it very simply, I look at intention versus perception. What is a given client, a given product? What is their intention? And what is the perception? How is it being perceived? And how can it be met halfway? Because you can't please everybody to get your business out, your message out, and the theme that you want in the most effective way.
So you mentioned the ghost drumming. I find that fascinating. I didn't know that was an actual role. It's almost like you're, I don't know if since it is kind of media entertainment, it sounds like you're almost like a backup singer type of, is that a good?
It's exactly like that. It was funny. I was in the New York City studio and a guy came up to me and says, "You're tall, you're hairy, and you're scary. You're never going to be a rock star, but you seem pretty grounded. I could probably get you gigs playing for a lot of them if you can keep your mouth shut." So that's how that world started for me, because I'm not pretty.
Well, you sound like an awesome person to hang out with. That's definitely for sure. So, you mentioned in that introduction, thank you for that, the intention versus perception. If someone is a new consulting or, aspiring, trying to get into consulting work, maybe share what's the big aha moment you had when you learned about, intention versus perception and how critical that is for a consultant to have as a skill.
Well, as I crossed over into consulting, it was built off of the experience that I had, the successes and the failures. A lot of younger consultants, you may have a lot of great ideas, but you're coming up against a wall of, why should I hire you to tell me what to do when you haven't done it yourself? Now, authority and expertise are key, but at the same time, if you don't try so hard to challenge and be that hype machine. And you explain where you come from, what your voice is, what your views are, the things that you grew up with. This can identify how you may be looking at things in a different way. I get spam emails from 21-year-old consultants that explain how they can take my name to the top and they can do this and they can do that. It's one off, they haven't even looked at me. Second off, I've already done all of that stuff for myself. Third off, when I go there, I don't see any example of them except for hype. So to dial back the hype, to come in the most humble way possible, to identify what is basically the failure analysis. You don't have as much experience. So how do you grow that experience? You share and bring across all the experience that you have. Did you grow up in a different country? Maybe you can bring a product or a person or a business to understanding the culture of that country and how to cross over. Do you love animals? Maybe you can bring something to different businesses that want to do cross-marketing with animals. Regardless of where you want to be, as you slowly build up and you share what you know with an authenticity, you will be able to grow your experience and authority and your online reputation so much better than going out there and hyping with the thousands of others that, should not have anything in consulting at all.
That was such a mic drop moment. What you just said is just so spot on, Loren. I so agree with you. And I love the failure analysis that you just mentioned. And, myself, I've been in consulting my entire career and I see that. And I actually have mentees that from time to time, they kind of feel that way. There's this sort of like imposter syndrome, right? That people sometimes feel like, well, I'm so young or I don't have experience. How can I bring or create that expertise? And so I love how you said about, kind of authenticity and authority. Like, is there anything else, let's say if someone who's just getting started, they're kind of in that throes, they feel like they're the hype and they don't want to be the hype anymore. They want to be concrete, solid experience. Anything else you can share from your background, or experiences that they can maybe do to kind of help round out, I know you mentioned authenticity, but anything else just from a kind of mechanics, operational perspective?
What you mentioned there first, though, that's the perfect place to start. The one is humility. Okay, I'm realizing I need to come in a little bit more real. The second thing that's still kind of tied into that humility becomes the identifier. A business consultant can be a very broad term. It's why I chose brand precision marketing strategist. I'm still a business consultant, but it looks at different aspects of strategy. Now, if you look up the term business consultant online, there's the widest array. What area of business are you most passionate about? What do you love? What do you want to do? And why do you want to do it that way? In that can help you develop your business. Second, I call it the fake business. Take the time and create that business that would be doing everything that you told them to do in your mindset, in your views, in your organization. So for example, in one of my books, I talked about a band that doesn't exist. The band was called Kitty Likes Avocado. It was named after one of my cats that I dropped some avocado on the floor and he went ballistic. So I built inside of this book, I built this band with a bio, with a brand, with a logo, with all the information, with all the pieces, the stage plots, the promo, the posters, the recording budgets, everything that I would have wanted. And by putting that inside of this book, it showcased to people a greater sense of, here are things that you can get both for free. And if you want to dig in a little bit deeper and work with me, I can explain more of the details. So create your template. Don't use a template from some other life coach or some other business coach or using templates for examples of things that you don't understand. Create what you know. If you're interested in, let's say, fitness fashion, create a false fitness fashion line. It doesn't have to turn into something too big. It doesn't have to be expensive, but you can create a brand. And who knows, maybe as you create that thing and use that as an example to show other clients, it might get this leverage of people saying, well, I want this. You bring out you. And when you stand out as you and don't follow the droves of followers and fakes, the right people are going to look to you and the right people are going to hire you.
Now available on Amazon. Management consultant and author Christy Lindor shares career secrets based on 15 years of experience working at top firms in a new book called The Muse. 100 plus selected practices, unwritten rules, and habits of great consultants. The Misi Muse provides insights, stories, and strategies on the unwritten rules of the consulting profession. Christy conducted research and connected with 50 plus industry titans across 27 professional service organizations on what makes a great consultant. For book reviews, tour dates, and more info, go to www.misimuse.us.
I think that was such good feedback and such good advice. So go-getters, they're actually, kind of to the point about the fake, building creating a fake type of scenario. There are tons of kind of case study, go-to-market simulations out there. I'm sure, if you tap certain consulting firm websites, you'll see them out there. So it's not just about doing kind of case studies specifically for recruiting, which is great. But I think, kind of what Loren is saying, alluding to really sharpening your saw and building kind of that muscle through creating opportunities, in addition to your day-to-day work. And I think kind of the simulations, the case studies are a great way to kind of build that and to start from a vantage point. So thank you, Loren. I think that was so spot on. Just kind of switch gears kind of slightly. What advice, it sounds like you just had an amazing background, and I feel like we haven't really even scratched the surface of your background, but, what would you say is advice you would give your younger self, kind of knowing what you know now?
Knowing what I know now, and not to come off negative, my biggest failure analysis is trusting too early. I genuinely want the best for everyone. I want people to succeed. And I think that any of you as consultants or aspiring consultants, if you are truly doing it because you want to help someone see success, then it's a beautiful and moral thing. And inside of me wanting to see success, and at times, of course, wanting to benefit financially too, where I should have stopped, I kept going. Where I should have closed down, where I should have moved on, I just pushed it another step. I trusted in a lot of places that I shouldn't have. Now, I don't regret it. I have no regrets whatsoever. And then some people say, oh, you got to regret. The losses that I took have made me the consultant I am now. Had I not gone through this, and there was one project that cost me and a team $4.3 million. It was devastating. I mean, the stuff that nightmares are made of. But had that not occurred, it would not have brought all these other opportunities. So it really, just to look back at my older self, is to say, do your due diligence. Double check. Don't buy. If somebody says it on the website, great. Go find 3 of their clients and talk to them, or go ask more questions. Because sometimes in our heart, when we love something so much, when we see the opportunity, when we see the options, we ignore that sense of, hey, we better check into this.
Another mic drop moment for sure. So Loren, again, I'm going to switch gears again. What would you say is the coolest thing that has ever happened to you in your line of work?
I would say there was a reality show that I was doing some consulting on, and it was a pretty large one. Inside of sitting down, and there were all these people telling this particular person what to do. And I came in, I sat down, and they had a very up-guarded thing. And everybody wanted something. I viewed it as a situation where, wow, if I can create this can leverage so many more opportunities for me. So I didn't look for the high pay. I asked for, and it was the same thing in how I started my drumming career. I asked for 25% of what all these other, consultants and coaches and strategists were asking. I laid out, this is what I want to do. This is why I want to do it. This is how I believe it will work. This is when it has to happen. This is what we do before it. This is what we do during it. And here's how we follow it up after. When that happened, in that moment, to watch that thing happen and unroll on television, to watch certain headlines come out, to watch things on the news, and not to say that it was contrived, but to an extent it was. But it showed at the highest level of how brand penetration can move a product, can move a person out there. I mean, it was a pretty big highlight in all of it. I do love the small businesses and I love the hands-on stuff, but that big one was pretty cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I guess in terms of for next steps, if someone was to want to get a hold of you, to connect with you, how can people reach out?
People can connect with me at lorenweisman.com, LorenWeisman.com. You can anywhere on social media, LorenWeisman. on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I have a podcast myself called Wait, What Really Okay? But mainly, if you connect with me, connect to look at the things that you can take from me and use for your business and yourself. Everything that I talk about with people and showcase, it's all proof of concept with me. And that's one thing I want to tell all of you consultants. You have an idea, test it, prove it. Don't say somebody told me, I heard, I read, I saw. Test it out. And that one other thing, I'm kind of jumping off of my contact, but for them, do a whole bunch of sit downs for free. Because that's a lot of these consultants that made their millions. They don't talk about that in their books. A lot of them sat down. It wasn't getting into the door and becoming a consultant. A lot of them had said, look, I have some really wonderful ideas. I want to do an hour with you. I'll do it for free. Just consider me. What a great way to get your voice, your ideas, and your authenticity out there for free. And it's not shortcutting yourself because that one person is going to tell 10.
Well, thank you so much, Loren. This was I call it a power-packed interview for sure. I think you gave our listeners so many different ideas and toolkit things that they can use for sure. One last question before we close. You mentioned your podcast show. I took a look at it and was intrigued by the subtitle. It's A Methodical, Comical Podcast. So can you maybe share with the listeners, a little bit more about their podcast show?
The show, it's a business and branding style podcast. And it's just, for me, in all honesty, all transparency, it's an audio that I have that comes out once a week because it's important to have that audio, that video, that whatever else. The show talks about different elements of what I apply. And I make sure when I apply those things that I work on the title of the podcast so that it optimizes. I fill out the tags. I put in the bio. It's making every piece of content that much stronger. But inside of that podcast, and we'll have to have you on that one as a guest.
I would love to.
That'd be great. We'll schedule that after we're done here. But it allows people information in a down-to-earth way of, I call it the who, what, when, where, why, and how. It's not the hype about something. It's, this is what it is. This is how it's done. This is how I've seen it applied. And this is why I think that way.
Awesome. So go-getters, check that out. That's waitwhatreallyok.com. I just love that name. I so love it. And we'll include all the links again on our show notes. But it's been a pleasure, Loren, to connect with you. This was fantastic. Thank you so much for making time to join us.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And go-getters, if you have a specific question or feedback about today's show, feel free to drop us a line, mcmuseunplugged@gmail.com. Again, I'd like to thank Loren for being a guest on today's show. And thank you, my go-getters, for tuning in. This is Christy Lindor signing out for the Misi Muse Unplugged Pop-Up Podcast. Here's to your journey to greatness.
Tune in every Friday for new episodes syndicated on iTunes, Google Play Music, and many more. Visit www.misimuse.com for more information.